I know.
2 minutes before the bar.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see on how many people actually get their homework turned in. Maybe. Okay. So on this one, the negative got distributed. Plus 8 plus 2i ended up 3 plus 10i. Okay. And this one, a few of you guys just changed the sign on this second one, but a positive times a negative stays negative. So it ends up staying the negative 3i, so 15 minus 6i. Okay. Good job. Okay, we're almost there. Questions? Okay, so now, last thing, okay? So the square root of, I is the square root of negative 1, okay? So if I have the square root of negative 1, that's my I squared, what's going to happen is that these cancel, yep. So I squared is negative 1. We're going to need that for when we multiply, okay? So the first thing you always want to do is just treat the i's like they were regular variables, okay? So if I was a regular variable, it's not, but if it was, then I would just multiply the coefficients, right? So then that would be 8i, and that's what it is now. That should stay in I because I have a real times an imaginary, so it should stay in imaginary. Sorry, Morgan, what was your question?
So, I forgot what I was going to ask.
All right, you're good. Okay, let's look at number 11. Okay, if I was going to pretend this was like a normal thing we did in our first unit, I'd multiply my coefficients together, right? Can someone do 6 times 7 for me? 42. Is it going to be a positive or a negative?
Positive.
Negative, because a positive times a negative stays negative. Now, when I have two of the exact same letter, it's I squared, okay? So let's stop here. If those i's were x's, I would be done, right? But they're not x's. And I just learned on my last page that an imaginary times an imaginary should be a real number, right? Well, what is I squared? So really, this is 42 times negative 1 or positive 42 because the two negatives cancel. Okay, let's look at that one again. Okay? So first I just treat it like a regular x, and then, that's how I got the negative 42i squared. But now I remember that I squared is negative 1, and I remember that two imaginaries are supposed to be a real number. Okay? So that I squared is just the same thing as negative 1. So negative 42 times negative 1 is positive 42. Good? How are we doing, okay?
Yeah.
Any questions before we try another one? It's going to get a little trickier. Ready? We're almost there. Okay? Okay, number 12. If there's nothing in between the two parentheses, am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing them? Good. Now you can use arrows, but I like my organized box. So, okay. So 2 plus 6i and 6 plus I. So we're going to FOIL out just like we did in Unit 1. You can use the arrows, but I like the box because it's a little more organized. Okay. So 6 times 2 is 12. Then 6 times 6i, 36i. 2 times I, 2i. And 6i times I is 6i squared. So again, the first step is always do it just like what we did last unit. Pretend the I is like an X. Okay, it's not to the very last step that we have to deal with the I squared equaling negative 1. Okay, so then if I add up my like terms, So my two i's are going to go together. But guess what? The 12 and the 6 are actually like terms because the I squared is -1.
So does that mean it's
So it's really like 12 plus 38i minus 6.
that's just what it is?
Well, no, because now I have to combine my like terms.
-6 plus 38, right?
Positive 6. 12 minus 6 is positive 6.
One, two.
I want you guys to try 14.
14?
Yep.